Dean School of Arts and Social Sciences to carry on from there. Thank you so much.
Acting Deputy Vice Chancellor, Professor Shtandi. Our guest speaker, Professor Abu Bakr. All the other keynote speakers who have joined us virtually, Professor Maron Mutugi, Professor Hassan Kaya, Professor Onusanya, and Professor Shitandi, lecturers, delegates of the day, students, all protocols observed. Good morning. Good morning once more. Good morning. I want to take this opportunity to welcome you to Kisii University School of Arts and Social Sciences. This is our second international conference themed Heritage and Sustainable Development Goals in Africa. This is a follow-up on our first conference, which was held in 2019 on Indigenous Knowledge Systems. We are privileged to have keynote speakers who will assist us chart a way forward on heritage and sustainable development goals in Africa. The pertinent issues which this conference seeks to address is, do we still have, as Africa as a continent, can we say that we have heritage? Is heritage there? If it is there, where is it? Is heritage a knowledge system? And if so, who is the owner of this knowledge system? How can we, as a continent, bring on board our heritage? Those and some other issues will be addressed in this conference. I want to say that it is an honor for you to find time to come here so that we can discuss these issues of heritage and how we can leverage on heritage for development in Africa. So I'm going to be very brief because the speakers who will be coming will be telling us more about heritage. But mine today was just to welcome you to this conference and tell you that you are at home. Feel at home and feel that you are appreciated. When I look at the program, I'm supposed to invite the WASU chapter at Kisii University. I don't know if it is here, the Kisii University chapter is not with us. Then we have the Erasmus program of the European Union representative. Is the representative with us? Okay, like it has not arrived. So I'll take this opportunity to welcome the Deputy Vice Chancellor, Academic and Student Affairs to come and deliver the Vice Chancellor's remarks and also introduce our keynote speakers. Our Deputy Vice Chancellor, Acting Deputy Vice Chancellor, Academics, Professor Shtandi, you are most welcome.
Thank you. thank you very much, Madam Dean. Our keynote speaker, Professor Abu Bakar. Very welcome to Kisii University. The organizers of this conference, colleagues who are represented here, and participants who are here both physically and virtually. Sorry about that. I'm very delighted to be here this morning. Essentially, today I'm here to the Vice Chancellor, Professor John Akama, who would have liked to be here very much. As many of you are aware, he himself is a distinguished scholar, but he was called to Nairobi on an urgent matter by the ministry. So he delegated this to me, and it is a duty which I'm delighted to perform. Before I read his speech, what I'd like to say very briefly on my own, because I've been involved with aspects of hosting these scientific conferences in my main role as the registrar for research. Over the past 5 months, I have been acting as Vice Chancellor, and so this still falls under that mandate. The university is very, very interested in the hosting of scientific conferences such as this, because we are aware that they tend to provide opportunities to meet fellow scholars, exchange, develop new ideas, come up with new strategies to address research challenges, and also establish collaborations. And for the students who participate here, they provide an opportunity for you to get input from other scholars and other students about aspects of your work. And they also hopefully provide a motivation, especially for our younger colleagues, because many of the papers you present here, hopefully you can be able to get them published. And you may know that the publication of articles and of your research output is a very important aspect of your own growth as scholars. And the university has taken this school-based approach to see ways in which schools can host conferences, as opposed to the previous approach which we used to have, where we would have a conference where all schools would participate. Last week, we were very pleased to have the School of Education and Human Resource organizing the conference. And it is also a delight to have this particular conference occurring this week. And so we wish to continue to suggest that the schools should, as much as possible, try to see ways in which they could factor these conferences in their performance contract. Because if you do that, then you will always have a steady budgetary allocation. And so I'm hoping, Madam Dean, that come next year, this is an aspect which can be factored in your performance contract, so that a budgetary allocation is provided for. You may be aware also that the university is currently developing a policy paper which will look at aspects of promotion criteria. And so the outputs from this, we are the initial base, we are just having the draft, and we are going to see ways of engaging the stakeholders. The union has been very passionate about being involved, and we are going to see how to involve them so that as the policy paper is developed upwards, all these considerations can be factored in. My own personal belief has been that schools are best placed to determine the quality of papers which can be published and which can be acceptable and which can then be used as a promotion criteria, rather than me maybe as standing looking at aspects of your papers in say social sciences and determining that this paper meets the quality. Primarily being a microbiologist, I'm better placed to look at microbiological papers than papers which emanate from here. But we hope that there will be broad acceptance, and we wish, I wish the officials right here, we wish to encourage them not to just reject everything, because we cannot operate in a vacuum. We need to have some policy papers which will be able to guide the process forward. And as I've said, we are going to seek engagement in that direction, and output from conferences will be very, very key. So with those remarks, it's now my pleasure to give a brief bio of our Vice Chancellor, and then I'll have the duty of reading his keynote. Professor John Akama is the Vice Chancellor of Kisii University. He is the founding principal of the 10 Kisii University College, which he led to formally acquiring a charter in 2013 to become a full-fledged university. Professor Akama has widely published, presented papers, organized a substantial number of national and international workshops and conferences within and outside Africa in diverse areas such as curriculum, tourism, sociology, culture, and wildlife conservation. Recently, Professor Akama was appointed as a member of the Interpublic Universities Consultative Forum, a joint negotiating team in Kenya. He is also a celebrated author of various books, among them Undeterred, A Rural Boy's Journey to the Pinnacle of Academia, The Kisii of Kenya, Socioeconomic, Cultural, Political, and Judicial Perspectives, and The Untold Story, Kisii Survival Techniques and Resistance to Colonial Rule. And I think many of us have had the opportunity to participate in, especially this book launches by our Vice Chancellor. And on this, he has provided leadership as far as scholarly work is concerned. Professor Akama did his undergraduate studies in education at the University of Nairobi. He then proceeded to the US, where he undertook master's and PhD studies at Ohio State University and Southern Illinois University, respectively. On returning to Kenya, he joined Moi University as a lecturer and rose to the rank of full professor, teaching at both undergraduate and postgraduate levels. Thank you. So now it's my duty to read the Vice Chancellor's keynote speech. The chief guest guest speakers, officials and representatives of the national government and the county government of Kisii, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen. It is an honor to host this year's second Kisii University School of Arts and Social Sciences International Conference. On behalf of Kisii University and all our esteemed partners, I have the pleasure to welcome you to the second Kisii University School of Arts and Social Sciences International Conference on Heritage and Sustainable Development Goals in Africa. As the first Vice Chancellor of Kisii University, I feel greatly honored to address this gathering as we endeavor to reflect on the best ways of harnessing cultural heritage and scientific research for sustainable development. This year's conference draws on the Kisii University School of Arts and Social Sciences shared belief that our heritage is priceless, and we must all come together to protect and preserve it as the mother of our shared history. Heritage that is natural, cultural, material, and immaterial plays an important role in achieving the development of sustainable cities and communities. In today's conference, as Kisii University and all our esteemed partners, we feel a special attachment to our place as a memory, an object, tradition, and cultural home. Ladies and gentlemen, in this era of globalization, cultural heritage tends to regain and be given special recognition as an essential part of protecting our sense of identity and as a tool for tackling global challenges like gender, inequality, poverty, and now the coronavirus pandemic that continues to disrupt our social cultural heritage. Evidently, it is natural to value certain things and to want to preserve them for ourselves and our future generations. Heritage and sustainable development present a wide spectrum of actions, not only in terms of keeping and passing on what we value, but also harnessing and enhancing the available resources to support the goal of sustaining life on the planet. And this is very much in line with the 11th goal of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals that emphasizes the relation between heritage and sustainable development. Our conference here builds upon the multidisciplinary expertise of academics and scholars from the social sciences, humanities, health sciences, and applied sciences, and aims to facilitate the exchange of innovation, knowledge, and experiences about heritage and issues traversing various sustainable development dimensions. It is important to note that heritage is more than just monuments. It is an evolving resource which supports identity, memory, and sense of place, and has a crucial role in achieving sustainable development. It enables social cohesion, social economic regeneration, strengthens the social well-being, and enhances long-term tourism benefits. Moreover, it has been realized that globally that explicit focus by heritage professionals to the role of SDGs in their work remains scanty and unevenly documented. This disconnect has led to missed opportunities for synergy building and agenda settling based on scientific evidence, dialogue, and robust arrangements for policy and practical change. Addressing this issue is the shared responsibility not only of international agencies, such as the United Nations Education, Science, and Cultural Organization, but also of national and county governments, businesses, the civil society, expert organizations, and actors outside the heritage sector. Ladies and gentlemen, as academicians, scholars, administrators, we are under obligation to take up the challenge of conserving this fragile, non-renewable resource to ensure a better and more sustainable future for the current and future generations. For instance, the International Union for Conservation of Nature notes that both cultural and natural heritage sites are under gigantic gravity from the bearings of urbanization, climate change, and degradation due to other natural and human factors. Ladies and gentlemen, as we receive and share knowledge today, let us all aim at harnessing the potential of heritage to eradicate extreme poverty and ensure improved health for all, for instance, by protecting landscapes and associated practices from harmful food production, ensuring the continuity of ways of life and food independence for local communities, promoting cultural food production practices that are nutrient-rich and adaptable to climate change, enhancing local knowledge for sustainable food production, ensuring compensation mechanisms when heritage destination impacts access to food resources, ensuring proper planning and provision of decent housing for conserving and reusing built heritage and associated practice, promoting widely available alternative holistic paths to health and well-being, and consulting local communities so that we can ensure their participation in decision-making processes. On the part of the Kenyan government, we need legislative, institutional, and technical support units in keeping with the vocation of both the natural and the cultural heritage in our society. Ladies and gentlemen, we all know and need to remember that significant progress has been made in recent years, more so in ensuring gender equality and in empowering minority groups all over the world. However, there are still many issues preventing gender equality from being achieved. These include, but are not limited to, the widespread discrimination against women and people with disabilities, gender-based violence, lack of food and effective enjoyment of human rights, more so the non-inclusion of the minority groups in decision-making processes on political, economic, and cultural issues that affect the public life. With this in mind, it is important to note that heritage plays a crucial role in the creation, dissemination, and transformation of gender-related norms and values. Moreover, research on cultural heritage can be used to highlight fundamental and public roles played by women and other genders in different periods of history to support the eradication of recurrent negative stereotypes of women, thereby empowering both genders in society, in addition to recognizing that heritage is constantly changing and evolving. Ladies and gentlemen, as I conclude, it is clear that cultural heritage is not renewable and cannot be reconstituted once it has been destroyed. for it would no longer be the same heritage. We are merely the custodians of our cultural heritage and must endeavor to protect and preserve it in all diversity for a better and more sustainable future for all. This understanding, in my informed view, will inevitably enable us all to rethink our cultural legislations and policies for sustainable development and cultural heritage management. And it is the realization of this that has informed Kisii University to establish the Center for Cultural Heritage Studies to enable us to document and also develop appropriate strategies for sustainable conservation and preservation of our cultural heritage. Thank you all, and I wish all of you an enjoyable and enriching conference. Thank you. That brings me to the end. I was supposed to introduce
the keynote speaker for the day,
who is
Professor.
So thank you all again, colleagues. As I had indicated, it is always a pleasure to have a distinguished scholar amongst us. And we thank you very much, Professor, for finding time here with us at Kisii University. Professor Abu Bakar Ba, I hope I pronounced it right, is a professor of sociology at Northern Illinois University and faculty associate at the Center for Nonprofit and NGO Studies. He is the coordinator of the Global Connections Pathway Program at NIU, which is the Northern Illinois University. Professor Ba is also the editor-in-chief of African Conflict and Peace Building Review, published by Indiana University Press and African editor for critical sociology. He was also a senior fellow at the Canadian Center for the Responsibility to protect. We haven't captured the specific area of protection. Maybe Professor Ba will mention. But Professor Ba is globally renowned. Is a globally renowned scholar of peace and conflict. Professor Ba's research interests include peace and conflict, democracy and development. His books include Post-Conflict Institutional Design, Peace Building and Democracy in Africa, which is published at the University of Chicago Press in the year 2020, International Security and Peace Building Africa, the Middle East and Europe, published by the Indiana University Press, Breakdown and Reconstitution, Democracy, the Nation State and Ethnicity in Nigeria, Lexington Books. His articles have been published in top journals such as African Affairs, Administrative Theory and Praxis, Journal of International Peacekeeping, Critical Sociology, International Journal of Politics, Culture and Society, the Journal of Political and Military Sociology, and Africa Today. Professor Ba is a recipient of the 2014 and 2016 a Carnegie Foundation African Diaspora Fellowship. And I think all of us know that the Carnegie program has been a very vibrant program over the past 6 years, 8 years here also in Kisii University, bringing distinguished scholars back to their motherland. The 2012 Council of American Overseas Research Multi-Country Research Fellowship, that's another award he has been a recipient of, and the 2015 Northern Illinois University Outstanding International Educator Award. He has conducted research and worked with universities and research centers in Kenya, Nigeria, Cote d'Ivoire, Senegal, Liberia, and Sierra Leone. Professor Ba is a frequent guest on international media programs such as Al Jazeera and China Radio International. He has been an invited speaker at major institutions such as Renmin University in China, Stanford University, University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, University of South Florida, Virginia Commonwealth University, University of Nairobi, Laikipia University, United States Department of State, Global Center for Pluralism in Canada, and Social Sciences Research Council in New York. He has also served as a consultant to the United Nations Peace Building Commission and the Peace Nexus Foundation. Professor Ba has served on the board of organizations such as the West African Research Association, the International Center for Ethno-Religious Mediation, and Jane Adeni Memorial School for Girls in Kenya. Professor Ba is a citizen of the United States of America. He was born and raised in Sierra Leone, and he received his doctoral degree from the New School for Social Research, New York, and undergraduate degree from the University of Sofia in Bulgaria. So, ladies and gentlemen, as you can see, we have a distinguished scholar before us, and I would like to take this opportunity for us to welcome him. I don't know how many of you were there during the Nyayo days. You can see, as you colleagues, I think, Daktari, I know I think you were there during the Nyayo days, and a few others. But you may recall the Nyayo clubs. So let us welcome Professor Ba with the Nyayo club. Moja. Thank you. Yeah. Oh, iko fungua na.
Well, thank you very much. I still have a homework to do to learn what that means. But I'm going to assume it's a very good thing.
Yes.
So much back to you. And thank you, Professor Anakalo. And thank you, Dr. Barasa. And thanks everyone here. And my special greetings to Professor Akama. And it's really a pleasure to be here. And thanks for the warm invitation. And also for the warm introduction. So as always, Kenya is a wonderful place. The flight from Nairobi is wonderful, and I always consider Kisii and the Romeo. So as I looked over the theme and spirit of the conference, that is the question of heritage and knowledge, the knowledge it embodies. I couldn't help but ponder on my own background, which has always been an inspiration for my research and continuous learning. I grew up in a small city in Sierra Leone that was very diverse because it was a mining town with people from all over the country and other countries as well, notably Lebanon, Syria, Nigeria, Senegal, Guinea, Mali, Gambia. All of these people had different cultures, religions, languages, and ways of doing things. My life mostly revolved around three places: regular school, traditional Quranic school, look at Malimus, Arabic and Arabic evening classes. And later, around the age of 14, I started learning tailoring, which was a craft practiced by people without formal education. But I came to understand that they were very wise and skillful people. Before studying in the United States, I had the opportunity to study in Bulgaria at a time when the country was transitioning from communism to democracy and capitalism. I lived in a small part of the city called Studentski, where there were thousands of students from different parts of the world, across Africa, Asia, Europe, and Latin America. I was also exposed to somehow a different form of learning and philosophy. This exposure really instilled in me the value of diversity, and to understand that there is knowledge in every culture and among every group of people. We just have to have the wisdom and patience to see it. So in summary, I was exposed to indigenous knowledge, including artisan knowledge, through informal and semi-formal education, and to social and scientific knowledge through formal education. But what these bodies of knowledge have to do with heritage and social and sustainable development? So as we think of knowledge and development, I want us to begin with our own experiences and the people around us. I think the theme of the conference is very fitting for a reflexive and grounded knowledge. One that understands that the purpose of knowledge is not just knowing for the sake of knowing, but for the purpose of changing the human condition. It's important to know that knowledge is everywhere. You just need to be able to sense it, appreciate it, and use it appropriately. So to me, the gap between what I learned through formal education and through informal and semi-formal ways is eroding very fast. My way of thinking, who I am, is a product of all the modes of knowing that I've been experienced. So I hope this conference and the great works that I'm going to continue from it will be a catalyst for breaking the walls between indigenous knowledge and social scientific knowledge. Certainly, we need to bridge indigenous knowledge and social scientific knowledge through bold, creative initiatives at the academy. I'm actually very glad to see that Kisii University is already leading in this way. So as I understand it, the goal of the conference is to build capacity, to promote applied research, and market art, culture, and indigenous languages. The idea is that heritage should no longer be absent from mainstream sustainable development, and that heritage should be seen as of crucial importance to the social, economic, and environmental goals of sustainable development. I also understand that the ultimate goal as the distinguished professor said here, is to create a heritage studies research center that will be a conduit to achieving the goals of promoting development by harnessing indigenous knowledge. So what are the questions that we need to answer as we get here? So as I point on the goals of the conference, a few questions come to my mind. What is knowledge? How do we produce knowledge? How do we package and disseminate knowledge, locally and globally? What is the purpose of knowledge? What can we do to achieve the goals associated with this conference? So I want to take a problem-solving and practical approach in my talk, so that we think more about how to actualize and achieve the goals of the conference, instead of just talking about the goals. So what is knowledge anyway? So we must first ask what is knowledge in order to deconstruct the need of social and scientific knowledge and lay out the potentials of indigenous knowledge. Of course, I mean, this is an epistemological question that we see in varying philosophies, such as previous comes laws of the 3 stages of knowledge, that is theological, metaphysical, and scientific knowledge. In Thomas Kuhn's analysis of the development of social and scientific knowledge and the various disciplines, in Michel Foucault's deconstruction of knowledge, notably through the archaeology of knowledge and the notion of power. In Patricia Hill Collins's critique of Eurocentric and male-dominated knowledge through the notion of Afrocentric knowledge. So generally, we can understand that knowledge as ways of pondering, investigating, and validating that which we think as it is or how it should be. It is a way of encountering and mastering the natural world and a way of organizing the social life. While indigenous knowledge is largely about skills acquisition, that is how to do something or how to make something, social and scientific knowledge is rooted in critical thinking and contestations, an assertion of what is fact over what is false, i.e., why things are what we are and how things should be. But how do we produce and package knowledge? So the questions at hand requires us to delve a bit into the production and packaging of knowledge. As for the social and scientific knowledge, it is important to note a few things that make it authoritative and useful knowledge. And some of these include critical thinking and theory, empiricism, that is data, evidence, facts, methodology and process, documentation, a way of books, articles, databases, journals, publishing houses, objectivity and impersonality, vetting, that is through reviews, critique, and testing. Also, the burning desire to discover new things, that is to answer new questions, and application to the real world, and efforts to generalize the findings and make the findings scalable in their application. So, however, social and scientific knowledge is also bureaucratic, commercialized, Eurocentric, and colonial. As such, it is political. And I do not mean political in the simple sense. But what I mean is that it is geared towards power, domination, and order. Just as we learn from the works of Thomas Kuhn, Michel Foucault, and Patricia Collins. So in a way, this is part of what is corrupting social and scientific knowledge. And that is what we must guard against as we seek to develop and scale indigenous knowledge. So as we explore the potentials of indigenous knowledge to enhance human development, it is important to know the few things about indigenous knowledge. And the question is, can it be authoritative? Is it scalable? So generally, indigenous knowledge is based on practice. It is a lived experience and social practices. It is informal, undocumented. In a way, it is a craft, an art, acquired through apprenticeships and handed down knowledge. It is mystical and rooted in the past. It is geared towards solving everyday problems and preservation of traditions. Now, both forms of knowledge, that is indigenous knowledge and social scientific knowledge, rest on their utility and problem solving. The one, that is social scientific knowledge, ventures into the unknown, while the other, that is indigenous knowledge, reinforces and reproduces what we already know. There is indigenous knowledge everywhere around us. The challenge is to create the processes to tap into it, disseminate it effectively, align it with greater local and national needs, and make it scalable. So I should tell you the title of that talk halfway in between, so now to the gist of it. And the title is The Production, Packaging, and Use of Knowledge, Indigenous and Scientific Modes of Knowledge. So the production of indigenous knowledge is necessary both for its own merit and for the decolonization of knowledge production. Because social and scientific knowledge is political, we need to understand its politics so that as the academy tries to tap into indigenous knowledge, we do not fall into the pitfalls of politicized knowledge and the knowledge of domination. By the politics of social and scientific knowledge, I mean neocolonialism and the exclusion of African voices and the Western-centric knowledge. I mean the unequal access to funding of research and granting agencies, capital, so to speak. I mean the ordering of the works of Africans, scholars, and works of Africans in well-connected journals and publishing houses based in the West. I mean the inherent biases in the review processes, the composition of editorial boards, the cultural determination of what is important research and what is worthy publication. I mean the capitalist mode of distribution, ownership, and accessing the product of research. So, but the politics of knowledge is also resisted in some quarters in their efforts to break the neocolonial fold. In journals such as the Pan-African Journal of Medicine, founded by Raoul Camacho, and the African Conflict and Peace Review, which MSA founded. So the politics of social and scientific knowledge is increasingly transforming knowledge into a mode of domination, an instrument of manipulation, a kind of mechanized profession centered on the production of papers. Indigenous knowledge should benefit from the strength of social and scientific knowledge, but it must try to avoid the politics of social and scientific knowledge. But let's come back to the question of leveraging indigenous knowledge for human development. So as we strive to leverage indigenous knowledge for the purpose of enhancing development, we must keep some core values in place. For a start, we must not forget that the noble purpose of knowledge is to improve the human condition. So indigenous knowledge is right on track. The question is how to make it scalable without making it inaccessible to everyone. especially everyday people. Second, we need to know that indigenous knowledge is rooted in cultures. With the rich diversity in Kenya and beyond, it will be beneficial to take a transcultural approach to the development and dissemination of indigenous knowledge. So African diversity should be an opportunity for transfusion and cross-fertilization of indigenous knowledge. And the question again is, can this lead to innovation? Certainly, there is possibility for innovation by discovering new ways of approaching similar problems across various cultures. Finally, we must think in terms of building partnerships. And by partnerships, I do not just mean official ties with governments and different organizations. Partnership means connecting with the on-the-ground players, especially artisans and creative people. So in the United States, there is a growing emphasis on engaged learning. And engaged learning can be a model for incorporating indigenous knowledge into the university system. However, it must be anchored in practical everyday needs and the values of shared knowledge. So in this way, the university can be a place where the people can learn from their own people, and a place where the people can come to make things and solve everyday problems. So I want to go back to the goals of the conference. The ultimate question is, what can we do to take this effort a step further? And I want to end with some few points that I draw upon from my own encounters with indigenous forms of knowledge and the social and scientific world. So first, we need to think of the academy as a community space instead of a bureaucratic institution. This means we need to think more innovatively about admission requirements, course content, modes of learning, ways of assessing knowledge, graduation requirements, and so on. One critical question, for example, is how to give credit for skills acquired in non-formal settings. Once we begin to see the university as a community space instead of a bureaucracy, the people will feel comfortable to engage. The university can create diverse spaces and processes to accommodate the nature of indigenous knowledge, in addition to the social scientific knowledge that is already produced. So in my own life, I know that process matters in making people appreciate it and be balanced. In Sierra Leone, my traditional Quranic schools education didn't have exams, grade levels, diplomas, none of those things. Yet knowledge was tested and affirmed throughout the process, mostly through oral assessment and observations. In contrast, the regular schools in Sierra Leone were built around big, rigid, and dream-killing exams, which breeded a system of corruption in both the way exams are administered and the way results are used for admission into higher educational institutions and giving employment. In Bulgaria, most of the exams at the university were oral exams. I was shocked when I went for my first exam. It was a simple interview with the professor. So you pick a couple of questions, you get 15 minutes to think about the questions, then you talk to the professor for about 10 minutes, and he gives you a grade. I'm not sure that they still have the same system now today, but the point is that it's a different way of assessing knowledge. And for some reason, it worked. At my university in New York, that is the New School for Social Research, registration for classes was very liberal and interdisciplinary. There were very minimal restrictions. You can take pretty much, you can register pretty much for any class you want and make your own program. My point is about thinking out of the box and understanding that the incorporation of indigenous knowledge may require unconventional processes. So the university must be creative and be ready. The second point is about language and documentation. And the critical question is how to document indigenous knowledge, especially in written form. So one can think of two options. One would be to cultivate writing in the indigenous languages themselves. And the other one would be to focus on the knowledge instead of the language of itself and document the knowledge in English or Kiswahili. Neither of these are easy options, but there's a need for deep thinking on these issues. And it's politic choice has to be made about which path. In Bulgaria, I learned that most of the Bulgarian books are translations and transliterations of books published in other languages, especially French, German, Russian, English. I'm not really sure whether they had copyright permissions or not, then at least back then. But at the time, it was under communist system, so who cared? They translated and published books. So indeed, knowledge has to be documented. But the question is how? How do we do it? So we must think of the right form of publications. A key step would be to establish a journal based on the proposed center. Such a journal will tap into the strength of social and scientific knowledge system. But it must also avoid the shortcomings so that it doesn't simply reproduce the knowledge of domination, exclusion, and other. So let us think of a journal that has multiple parts, one for scholars, another for artisans and artists, another for practitioners. A journal that has multimedia and photo sections. A journal that has manuals, recipes, and the like. A journal that has open access option. A journal with a truly diverse editorial board and reviewers. A journal that is local and global. A journal that is well connected to the academic networks and the social media. And yes, a journal that strives for quality and constant management. There has to be quality. If there's no quality, it will not succeed. So I want to conclude with the stories of the Pan-African Journal of Medicine and African Conflict and Peace. Both of these journals have been at the forefront of breaking the neo-colonial and Eurocentric holds on social and scientific knowledge. So I first met Raul Camacho, the founding editor of Pan-African Journal of Medicine in India. I believe it was in 2013 at a conference in Nairobi. Raul told us a powerful story of how the journal started. So he was at the Centers for Disease Control in the United States, where he wrote a paper on epidemiology and sent it to some US journals for publication. And they kept telling him his paper was about Africa, not medicine. So eventually he decided to publish it himself online. From there, he started to publish the works of other African scholars who have had bad experiences with Eurocentric knowledge, production, and dissemination. With dedication and courage, Pan-African Journal of Medicine is now a very successful journal. Most importantly, it is chipping into the Eurocentric hold on knowledge. It is a place where knowledge about medicine is produced by Africans through an African lens and shared with the world. The story of African Conflict and Peace Building Review, which I co-founded in 2010, is also insightful. So right at the start, I approached the head of my department, the person that I would just call the chair, and asked him for support. I told him the vision of the journal and the fact that most of the works we read in the academic literature about peace and conflict in Africa is written by white people and Africans based in Western institutions like myself. I try to explain to him that this doesn't produce a holistic knowledge, and that there is a need for a journal with great reach and visibility, in which people in Africa will also continue to contribute equally. He, that is the chair, told me that it was not doable. So essentially, he couldn't understand the vision and he ignored it. The problem is not just the fact that he did not provide support, but what bothered me was that he could not understand the problem of neocolonialism and Eurocentrism in social and scientific knowledge production. So I am very glad that I too ignored him as the chair and persisted through a variety of channels. I was able to establish the journal with the support of the West African Research Association. We got Indiana University Press to publish the journal as I wanted it. We have sections for scholars, policy discussions, photo and multimedia work for artists. We made a commitment to work with authors in Africa to ensure that they also get a real chance of publishing in the journal. We committed to providing mentorship, which is what Western scholars get from their professors anyway, mentorship. So today we are proud of the fact that the papers that have been published at African Conflict and Peace Review are by scholars. Half of the papers that have published since 2011 to now are by scholars based in Africa. And we're not in volume 11. I should note that my department eventually started providing support to the journal, which is good for the department and the journal. My point is not just to talk about African Conflict and Peace Review and Pan-African Journal of Medicine. The point is to emphasize the need to think of the box and challenge the colonization of knowledge. So cultivating indigenous knowledge will also be an important step in decolonizing knowledge and anchoring knowledge production in the noble need of changing the human condition through meaningful human development. I may sound like a rebel, granted an intellectual rebel, but I think this is a struggle that we all must do our part. And I'm hopeful that this vision of indigenous knowledge at Kisii University will be an important part in the decolonization of knowledge production. I'm happy to be in this struggle, which has been waged by countless, at countless sites across Western institutions, by people like W.E.B. Du Bois, Colonel West, Patricia Collins, Mahmoud Mamdani, Anchi Mambe, Ebenezer Badari, Wale Alibawi, and Cyril Obi to Justice. Thank you very much. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah.
Let's appreciate Professor Bach with the Nyayo class or the that one. I don't know how to do it. Maybe that one I don't know how to do it. Maybe the Nyayo one, sir. What to do the Kalamata? Okay.
Yeah.
The Nyayo one. Okay. Do that.
Hi. Moja. Thank you for your presentation. Barikiwa hadi ushangae.
Thank you, Professor Abu, for your presentation. And members attending this session will agree with me that you've shed light on the issue of heritage and culture, and indigenous knowledge systems. I just want to do a recap of what Professor has talked about today. And of importance, he mentioned the aspect of the value of diversity. There is diversity in our cultures, and if we are able to harness the knowledge in our respective cultures, then we'll be talking about sustainable development. And he also said that there is knowledge in every culture and in every group of people. That means that there is no culture without knowledge, and there is no group of people without knowledge. That means that knowledge is everywhere. He also touched on the goal of this particular conference, and members, I believe you've gone through the goal of this conference, and one of it is that we want to build capacity in which sense. I remember informing you that in 2019, we had an international conference in which we focused on indigenous knowledge systems. And this is a follow-up of that particular conference. And in this particular conference, we want to chart way forward on how we are going to establish the Heritage and Research Center at Kisii University. And as we look forward to establishing this center, I want to know how to go about it. And one of the issues as a school, we raised one of the issues of concern was that we would want to offer a PhD in heritage studies. And Professor Abu has talked about a few things on how to go about it. And he said that heritage should be an aspect of development, and we should look at how we are supposed to, first of all, understand what knowledge is, and also get to know how this knowledge is supposed to be produced and disseminated, both locally and globally. So in reference to that, he has provided way forward on how we can establish this center, the Heritage and Research Center. And he says that we need to think about deconstructing the myth of knowledge. And of essence, he talked about knowledge being something that is linked to power relations. That knowledge is linked to power relations, class formations, and even gender. And in that sense, therefore, we can say that there is a hierarchy of knowledge systems, both globally and locally. And that also, in one way or another, impacts on the knowledge economy. Therefore, as we think about this Heritage and Research Center, he says that we need to look at this particular program center as a community space, and not instead of looking at it as in terms of this instead of going the bureaucratic way, that we need to look at it from the perspective of community as a space. And we need to consider the admission requirements and even how we are going to look at the credit factors. How are we going to award the credit factors? What are we going to look at? The issue of exams also came up. Can we consider the oral exams, the written exams, and so many other issues which you raised, including the graduation requirements. And he said that as we chart way forward, we need to look at indigenous knowledge as a way of leveraging it for human development. And we also need to look at how we are going to disseminate this knowledge through maybe journals. And he talked about the aspects of the journals that we should consider. And I want to inform this group that the School of Arts and Social Sciences is also in the process of establishing a journal. And we've already made a few nascent steps, not so much, we've not done much about it. And maybe the output of this conference will also assist us chart way forward on some of the issues we need to include in this journal. And Professor Abu has mentioned some of them with reference to the Pan-African Journal of Medicine. So he talked about looking at this journal from perspective of it being having an open access option. It has to be local and global. It has to be a very professional journal and multidisciplinary and so many other issues. So and he said that we need to take a transcultural approach to the production and dissemination of knowledge, as we also established this Center for Heritage and Research. So members, I want to say that this has been a very informative session. This is not the end. We still have another session in the afternoon with Professor Mtugi, and we will, Professor Abu has set the pace. So all the discussions that we are going to hold will be around the issue of a heritage center, and also the curriculum that we are going to have for the PhD in heritage studies. I don't know if you have questions for Professor Abu. Otherwise, I'll go with the discussion. Well,
Thank you, Prof. Thank you, Dr. I think we'll have lots of questions. But, so maybe we have 5 minutes for questions, and because we are running short of time, I'll give Professor Stanley.
Right.
Want to ask a question?
No, I don't
Okay.
have a question.
Okay, is there one burning question? If not, because we are rushing, we are a bit late. The only thing I will say, Prof, is that what's very interesting from your talk is the coloniality of knowledge. Because again, when you start the journal, the West, what we call as that journal, they are not part of the reviewers. And then they start asking, telling you that the journal is not peer reviewed, or the people review the journal are not experts in that field. So that the impact factor, the so-called impact factor, is not good enough. We can't recognize that. Because what I'm saying that we have a journal known as the Journal of African Casualty Studies. We started the same way we started the Pan-African Medical Journal, and it's published by Wetmos Press, owned by the University of York. Kisii University pays, but they publish for us. The challenge we have been facing is our friends from the West, when you send them papers to review, it will take 6 months, it will take 3 months, or they will tell you, I'm so busy, I can't review this paper. So then you find you have this lag. I don't know how you have managed to do that. You have this lag of papers which have been sent, which you can't publish in time because of that. And then, ironically, our own brothers from the continent are the same ones who are not willing even to participate. That who's Professor so and who's Professor Abu, what review what is publishing. So we have that that problem. How do you navigate getting, it's a quality journal, but how do you get people to review? Because they have this mindset that this journal which is coming up is going to kill quote unquote our ideas. Because you know, most of our students, whether local, trained or abroad, they try to question the paradigm that these guys have been giving us. This is what is happening, you question that. And when they find you are questioning what they have been saying as the gospel truth, they don't like that. So they'll make sure that they don't review or give favorable reviews to papers which question their thought, thinking process. So maybe we engage later and tell us how you have done that. So you have getting quality reviewers. The reviewers are open-minded, who cannot do what? Who cannot delay the publication of channels. So with that, if there's no other question, we'll I'll ask the MC to give us the directions and what we have to do from now is forward.
Thank you, Prof. Kiriyama. All protocols observed. Thank you, our keynote speaker, Professor Abu, Professor Shitandi, and Dr. Baraza. Thank you. And everyone else who's attending the conference, we are glad you're here. I hope you're happy to be with us. This is the second SAS conference we're having, all about heritage. And the next step that we're going to do is go for tea. That's our next process. But before going for tea, there's a bit of housekeeping that we'd like to do. So number one, we're in this conference, so please inform any other person who'd like to attend the conference to use our Zoom link. We have the Zoom link. And also the Twitter handles. The Twitter handles are at Kisii Uni Staff Conference or at Kisii Uni Official. They are down here. And then we'll also ask the ICT to project the Twitter handles so that we can be seen that we're doing for the conference. So anything that you get from the speakers and what's happening, tweet, put on IG. We need to be out there. We can't just be local here. So put us on IG. Our handle is there. Kisii University Official. The Twitter handle is Kisii Uni Official. SAS handle is Kisii Uni SAS Conference. So those are our handles. Let us all be on social media right now. We have our bundles, we have our phones. Let's go online and be there. The second housekeeping rule is that we have the breakout rooms. The breakout rooms are 3 rooms. We have room A, B, and C. They're on 5th floor in the ICT building. The ICT building is that posh building you can see with all glass and nice looking, all beautiful there. It's on 5th floor, but we have our ushers who will take us there. So you see an usher there and you're getting a bit lost, please follow the usher. And then if you want to go to the ATM, which has deposit without withdrawals, the ladies are on this floor, and also the gents are on the same floor, are also downstairs, and we have water and yes. So if you get lost, ask an usher. Deposits, no withdrawals. And then also when you go to the breakout rooms, please remember that if you're doing a presentation, kindly give out your presentation before the sessions. So before the session, so if you're doing a morning session, there's a coordinator in each of the rooms. Please give out your presentation. If you're doing the afternoon session also, we'd like you to give out the session, give out your presentation also. And with that, I'd also like to recognize the presence of our deans around. We have a couple of deans around, so thank you for coming. Deans, just please say hi. School of Business, we can see you. School of Law, we can see you. Asanteni sana kwa kukuja hapa. Karibuni, karibuni. SAS tunasonga mbele. And last thing, we have a piece by one of our students. Is he around? So that when we're going for tea, we're energized and happy and our knowledge is there. Karibu sana. We're listening to him, and then after he finishes, now we all go for tea nicely. So anatuchangamsha kidogo ndo tukunywe chai kama tumbo ziko. Changamshwa.
Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Good morning. My name is Kisii, founder from the School of Business and Economics, particularly in the procurement department. I have a special composition poem in respect for the School of Arts and Social Sciences that was composed by Dr. Evans Omwaka. So welcome. The poem is Welcome to Peace. Welcome. Distinguished keynote speakers, ladies and gentlemen, from all walks of life, you have come to congregate for this noble cause. The Second School of Arts and Social Science Congress 2021, a congress of distinguished scholars, local and international alike. And so, welcome. Welcome to Kisii land, or Getembe as it is popularly referred to, the land of bananas, what we call amatoke, the territory of pumpkins, emiongo, the ground where spiderweeds chinsaga grow in plenty to supply food to the locals. I'm sure you will taste some. No, I'm sure we shall all taste some. And so, welcome. Welcome to Kisii land, a unique region of its own. The serene of our heroes, Sakawa the prophet, Otenyo Nyamanterere, Nyantika Mayono, Temu Naftal. The list is long. These are some of the true icons in Kisii territory. Welcome to this great land. Come to think of it, yes, there was one heroine by the name Mora Miti, a single-handed female fighter who dared resistance against colonialism. She rallied Abagetutu, Nyaribari, and Mogeka clans. She incited Otenyo, one of the Kisii warriors, to spear Northcote, a colonial officer, to a point of surrender. Welcome to Mora's territory. The journey of this conference has been long amid this myriad of challenges, but the organizers have trudged and still trudging to make headways. Congratulations, the School of SAS. Participants, you have trudged across those hills and valleys, across the forest and river meanders. The wildcats and dogs did neither stop you. You have arrived safely. Welcome to Kisii University. Welcome to Kisii University. Indeed, a university of 21st century, the fountain of knowledge, known for its outstanding performance in the School of Law, Medicine, Business and Economics, Pure and Applied Sciences, among others. This is indeed a great university. Karibuni Kisii University. Feel at home, at peace, and at ease as you share your knowledge with other academicians. May your knowledge find solace in your presentation. Welcome to Kisii University. Thank you.
Someone to pray for our cup of tea. And the order in which we are leaving this room is that the chief guest, our keynote speaker, will go out ahead of us. Then we follow them for a cup of tea just outside this hall. Thank you so much. Someone to pray for us. Father, in the name of Jesus, we thank you for the cup of tea that was prepared for us. May you bless it as we take it in Jesus' name. Amen. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, after you. Is this true? Yeah. Oh, you come in.
The choir, please ask the choir to come in after we leave. Some bit of entertainment. President. President. President.